Hello and good evening, everyone. I'm Joy Holt, and this is Monday with the Mayor. We're here with Terry Seitz today in Jasper. Good evening, Terry.
Good day to you.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Considering the week that we had last week and last 10 days or so, been certainly rather challenging for some citizens, some businesses, but as we look at the overall city, we're in great company, right? The whole state and southern Indiana as well has just been rather inundated.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about some of the flooding that's happening. Can you fill us in a little bit about what's happening with the Patoka River? What goes on when it floods here in the city? How do the protocols happen?
Well, there are different things how the river floods. This time it was a very unusual level of the river rising because for the most part, our floods are driven by either a release of water from Patoka Reservoir because they have to, or what occurs in the 19 miles between the dam and the city of Jasper, where you get fields full of flooding. This time we certainly had that 19-mile consideration. This is what we call downstream. Had no consideration to worry about the Patoka Reservoir. The reservoir was at essentially below winter pool level, and now it's back up to that, and we'll see where they want to go for summer pool. But we had what I would call probably as close as an event would be to a rapid rise in the river, where it rose very, very quickly because of localized rainfall. Our official count roughly from 8:30 Friday night to 9:30 Saturday morning at the wastewater facility, which is where we log city official amounts. At that point was 8.3 inches. And I know that parts of the county, maybe even parts of the city, may have had more. With rainfall like that, our city engineer consults with his guide from the National Oceanographic and Administration and determined that this, for Jasper, was what we call a 500-year rain event. And that terminology is used to determine the impact of the rate of rain over a period of time. And even later in the week, on Thursday night last week, we had a very short-term heavy rain event. So when people ask us, have we ever had rains like that, it's not the total number of inches, it's the amount of water in a time period that can cause the greatest concern initially. A few years ago, we had a tropical storm. Came in on a weekend and literally put many inches in a very short time frame, which created similar conditions, especially in wastewater, stormwater concerns. Wastewater perhaps backing up from the system, not being able to handle that. Stormwater, of course, trying to get away and creates intersection flooding or side road flooding, etc. So it's all really, we look at it from a civil city as rate of rain. So you literally could have a significant rain event that would occur in a half an hour if you got 3 inches of rain in a half an hour, because it creates the same conditions. For us, we know that the river rose relatively rapidly compared to what the river normally does. That presents with, generally Riverwalk, Clay Street, some of the flooding that we saw, and that's pretty typical. We're prepared. Those things were taken in as part of the city and built prior to my arrival, but we handle those things the same way, and barricades are out, etc. What happens then also, as you go into that, I took this and go, if I'm looking at from a taxpayer perspective, and some people have always asked, what about having the Jasper Cultural Center built in the Hoosier Desk site? That's in the floodplain. Or what about Jasper Cabinet? It's in the floodplain. Well, for different projects, first of all, a portion of the Hoosier Desk site is in a floodplain. Jasper Cabinet is. One is kind of a public project, one is a private project. So not that it matters, but the standards are as follows. Those two buildings sat high and dry.
Right.
There they were. And if you can now say, look, we got 8.3 inches of rain in a 12-hour period, and then more to follow, and you see what you see. And I think it gives a very good assurance that the new builds, first of all, will be built to current floodplain standards. There'll be a minimum 24 inches out of the major floodplain. And the remaining building in Jasper Cabinet site, River Center, certainly will have to follow standards and they know that they'll have flood insurance in regards to how they currently sit. That was known from the project in the very beginning. But ultimately we weathered that storm very well. We had about a half a dozen phone calls to our street department with some wet carpet and things, and what should they do with it, and put 2 stickers on it, cut it in 4-foot sections, and set it out, and we'll pick it up. We did not get any other emergency calls. We did have some with, if there was wastewater in the basement that backed up, we acknowledged, and there's some pumping that we could look at to prevent that when it's coming or to hold it back, and those are some short-term things that were done. So overall, as we look at how we responded, I think very well. I know we had some police officers that were out in some rescues early on. I came to the Jasper Communications Center, our dispatch center, in the middle of the night on Saturday. Spent about 2 hours overnight from about 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Kind of just observing, and our officers were not getting called out in Jasper any longer. We certainly understood the county and were ready to respond with them as need be, and our fire department continued to go out with them as well. And ultimately we knew that, again, others were getting hit perhaps even worse. We're very grateful. I know Mayor Spitter and I communicated throughout that evening, and he had some significant challenges, all depending how the cities sit. It was very interesting times, and ultimately you can't hide from it. It just comes, and you have to look at what you're either prepared for, or if it's something you've never seen before, how did you do? We had seen most of this, if not all of it, before. I should say one thing that was really important. In years prior to this, or flood circumstances, we would have had to respond to the structures and the residents that lived in the area west of what's going to be River Center. That was an area known over the years as Frogtown. Low-lying areas between 1st and 2nd Street and Main and Jackson Street. Since we had a federal grant, 100% paid, to mitigate and voluntarily buy out those properties, there it sits. We did not have to respond. So we actually put less local dollars available to that. We didn't have to consider whether we would put sandbags in or whether we would evacuate people. No one lives there anymore. There's no property there anymore. That would become a parking area for River Center, and all those things are known. But essentially, that was critical. This is the first time we have never had to respond to those living in or the properties in that area of Jasper. So that grant, that utilization, that work the city of Jasper did, saved us money down this line.
So good foresight.
Yeah, very much so.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, speaking of foresight, we have to finish this month out, and hopefully it'll quit raining.
That would be nice.
Yes.
April seems to be occurring in May.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I thought it was April showers. That's exactly right. Well, since if it dries out, and you guys are going to be holding some events, and the Strawberry Fest and Old Jasper Days are coming up.
That is correct.
All right, and that's happening on the 21st. If you can share a little bit, what is that like for Jasper? What does that do for the town?
Well, there's a combination really that comes from the Lions Club with the Strawberry Festival, and really the Chamber of Commerce that has worked with Old Jasper Days, and they concur over the same weekend. It's kind of a culminating of events in and near the riverfront area, including the Dave Beeler Plaza and certainly the Lions Club Park. Both have some water challenges, a little less so at the Plaza. Lions Club did, and I know that both of the organizations, the Chamber and the Lions Club, are kind of monitoring, hoping things can dry out for that. That would be a call they would make next week. And then one thing I do know is Lions Club is going to have a rededication of that park. That park is a handicap accessible park. Before those were really expected to be, they were ahead of their time, and acknowledge that, and certainly the organizations that helped also to upgrade that park. We now have an expression swing, which is where a small child and a parent or whoever, a guardian, can swing together back and forth, and that was a donated gift anonymously. Had a Boy Scout project from Nick Hedinger, which did outdoor exercise stations, and then traditionally some work done in the Lions Club Park itself. So it's a little pocket park, but it's one of those probably the first parks that parents and children would go to. And so we hope that the weather will clear up, that this can occur. We know we'll help where possible in cleaning off things as need be, but ultimately we've got to dry out a little bit ourselves. I know some of the long-range forecasts for this coming week still calls for perhaps some rain. Will it be like today and come at a very comfortable rate as we're taping this, or will it be something that is more of a gully washer? I would hope the former rather than the latter.
Yes, definitely. So because of the rain, also this brings me to my last subject. Touch a Truck has been postponed. If you can share a little bit about that and what your plans are.
Yeah, a couple things. The weather is certainly played a role into that, plus our crews and preparing of the areas for it. We had a lot of extra time put in this week from Park Department, Street Department, Wastewater Departments, any department responding, electric, and ultimately we felt, we want that to be a fun time. Hope they can rest this weekend and this past weekend as we want them to, and then going into the rest of May. We're going to tentatively say September 30th is that. Okay. You're the first ones probably to know that. We've locked in the date. Much of that has to occur. Is the depot being used? We have to book that like anyone else. How does that coordinate with the upcoming Spirit of Jasper schedule? And all that being said, I think we'll look at that. We'll make further announcements as we get into the fall, but we will have one this year for sure, and we would hope that it would be sometime in late September, tentatively September 30th.
Okay, well great. Thank you for the information.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This has been Monday with the Mayor. I'm Joy Holt, Terry Seitz. Have a good day.